Hi guys, it's Kate Dorsey. Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. I do this every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I am super excited to talk to Dr. Teralyn Sells, and I am going to invite her on so that she can join us. I'm definitely not on the right screen here. Here we go. Okay. Let me find her. Here we go. Invite. Okay. Yay, she's here. All right, let me bring you on. Okay. All right, so it's adding, and I'm super excited because we're really going to be going into how managing your time can really free up handling stress and allow you to feel happier. And like, who here doesn't want to feel happier? Happiness is amazing. Hey, how are you?
Hello.
Yay, I'm so glad you could join and make it. Will you tell our audience just a little bit about yourself?
Yes, give me a second here. I've never done this before,
no?
So
You're a newbie?
I'm gonna throw on a microphone
Live.
quick.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Facebook Live. So again, this is
Well, I've done Facebook Live.
Oh, you
I just haven't done interviews like this.
Oh.
So
yeah, that's okay.
So
yeah.
So hang tight.
Hey, Justin, thanks for joining. Again, this is Wellness Wednesdays with Kate Dorsey. I do this every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited that y'all are here, and I can't wait to talk to Teralyn. It's going to be really great. Hey, Megan, how are you? I hope you're doing well. I'm going to wave. I love waving. So it looks like you froze, and I'm not sure if that's the case. It's funny, Megan, I was actually just going to reach out to you today for guest blogging. So we'll connect again because I want to get that set up. All right. Are you ready? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yes.
We're good? Or no?
We're good.
Yay!
Yes.
All right. So would you introduce yourself to the audience and just talk a little bit about the work that you do?
Absolutely.
Yay. I don't know why. Sorry about my finger.
All right.
Right up in here.
Let's see. Okay, here we go. So hopefully my setup will work and everything's all good. I'm Dr. Teralyn. I keep freezing up.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You're unfrozen. Yay.
Okay. If I freeze up, I'll try to make a cool pose, like.
Yeah, like just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so I do what I call functional psychology. So I look a lot at brain health with people, neurotransmitter repair, gut health, nutrition, so people can feel better faster, whether they have a mental health issue, depression, anxiety, or even an addiction issue. So that's the crux of what I do, and it's super fun, and it's super outside of what most therapists do. So
yeah.
I'm a licensed therapist in Wisconsin, but the brain health stuff allows me to do things across the country.
Oh, that's awesome. So when it comes to like fast tracking, so like, I mean, most of us, when we're not feeling good, like we desire to feel better very quickly, right? So when it comes to fast tracking that, what are some strategies that you would take a client through, or what's a common thread or theme that you might really help break them down so that they can start to get there faster?
Well, it really kind of depends upon what they're presenting with, but really the biggest thing I tell people, if you want to feel better faster, you got to start eating. And eating good food and eating protein is always my number one go-to thing. So I think about that because a lot of people, when they go in for nutrition, they're like all in, I got to make all these changes, and it's just too much. Right. When you're feeling crappy, when you're anxious or depressed, making all these life changes is just too much, and it's just another reason to feel anxious or to feel depressed, right?
Right.
So one of the biggest things that we always look at, my husband, is making sure that you're eating protein about every 3 hours, and that will stabilize your blood sugar level. Because a lot of times, I know when I don't feel good, I'll find myself eating soup. You know what?
Uh-oh.
Keep, you know
It'll
what happens?
unfreeze. We'll just roll with it. Fine.
Yeah, I keep getting alerts, and I don't.
Simple is really
Every
key.
time I get an alert, I don't
We'll
know.
just
Sorry
keep
about
going.
that.
Yeah, so protein, really protein every 3 hours. And that is something that
Yep.
stabilizes blood sugar. And as that happens, um, why is stable blood sugar so important?
Well, when your blood sugar is low, that's when you're going to feel the most anxious or the most depressed. So when you think about like a hypoglycemic response, when people are in a blood sugar low, you're going to have less energy. So that will make your depression worse, you
Mm,
know? And so if you're not eating because you're so depressed, you don't have an appetite, your blood sugar will be low and it'll be harder to roll out of bed. Or you might wake up really shaky and really anxious because your blood sugars are out of whack. So what happens is this is the long and short of it, you know, your blood sugars are low and then your adrenaline will start kicking in to kind of fill in the gap here. And so when your adrenaline kicks in, now you're anxious, right?
right.
And that's when you do and say things you wish you wouldn't have said and done, right? And that could include, you know, eating poor choices for food, or that could also include like drinking alcohol or engaging in your addiction again. So keeping that blood sugar stable is rule number one in
Right.
my office.
Yeah, no, that
Mm-hmm.
makes a lot of sense because when we don't feel our best, we're not able to make really good decisions. We're not able to be clear, and we
Right.
often feel really stressed, fried, and frazzled. And that's not exactly, that's not really a great way to feel, you know? So that makes total sense.
Right.
And then if we're like, and keeping it with like keeping it simple, because I love that notion. Like when things are
Mm-hmm.
simplified, we're more inclined to stick with it. When somebody comes to you and they need all these changes, if we overwhelm them, a lot of times they just go away and then they don't come back, and then it's just more of the same for them. So in alignment with keeping it simple, is there any other strategy like that you tend to implement right after eating more protein?
Well, again, it really depends upon what they're presenting with, because everybody comes in with different things, but we'll just say like depression or
Yeah.
anxiety, you know. Typically what I do is at least either a lab test that I can look at adrenal function and neurotransmitter function, or just a checklist, a symptom checklist that I can kind of flesh out some of those imbalances there. So we might start off with something pretty simple like, you know, a B complex or magnesium, something very simple like that. But even more simple is really identifying those negative core beliefs that people hang on to and start destroying those one at a time, like taking a sledgehammer to it and being like, bye-bye, I
Yeah.
no longer need you, you know, because when you think about it, anxiety or depression often is rooted in things like, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, you know. So we can, you know, from a nutrient or amino acid therapy or protein, change your body physiologically, but that's not going to change your thought patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the next thing to tackle is your thought patterns.
Yeah.
After we've kind of straightened out some of the other stuff, because, you know, I will tell you, if you're in my office and you're shaking like a leaf because you're so anxious, I can't talk you out of that. Like
No.
we have to look at your body physiologically first
Yeah.
before we can, you know, I'm a failure and I'm shaking and I'm shaking. I'm like, well, let's think about alternatives. Well, you can't even, your
You
brain's
can't.
not even online, you
Yeah.
know, like, yeah. So
So
I usually have protein shakes right in the office and give them to them. There you go.
yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. So really what you're really saying, because I do a lot of work around transforming thought patterns, like really
Yeah.
overcoming negative internal self-talk and whatnot. And what you're really sharing is that, I mean, I'm also a therapist, from one therapist to another, like you cannot, when somebody is in full-blown anxiety, you can't just snap your fingers and move them out of that. They can't see any solutions. They're so stuck in that. So it's really powerful what you're sharing. It's like, how do we stabilize first? How do we
Right.
simplify first? How do we get your brain? I love what you just said, your brain back online.
Right. Right. Well, because if your brain is not online, anything you do or say in a therapist or coaching office isn't going to stick,
Right.
when your thinking brain is off. We have to get it back on. And, even when I think about things like breathing activities and things like that to help kind of dial down your nervous system, I mean, it takes your brain like 7 to 10 minutes of nice, relaxed breathing to recognize that it's okay to not be in fight or flight.
Right.
That 7 to 10 minutes, I mean, that feels like an eternity,
Yeah, when
when
you're in the
you're
middle of a
doing.
panic attack, yeah, it really
Yes,
does. You're like, oh goodness.
yes, right. But your body needs that time to come back online and come back to you.
Yeah.
And if we don't, so a lot of people be like, well, take some deep breaths in and out. And I'm like, don't do that. Don't don't do that. Number one, if you take a huge deep breath in, your heart rate's going to go up because your heart goes up when you inhale. Your heart rate goes down when you exhale. So if you're going to do anything, work on the exhale
Yep.
to get things started,
Yeah.
slowing things down instead of,
Yeah.
you know,
No, I always
you
teach
know.
that. That's so funny that you bring that up. I always teach that focus on the exhale. Like if we're gonna do it, do a 3 count in breath and like a 6 count out breath. Because I'm like, it is actually in the out breath that you're activating the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the game changer. But that's the relaxation response. And since it's the relaxation response, it's not like, bam, here we go. It's gonna take some time to come online. And we gotta like breathe through that and hold space for that.
Right. But, it's funny because we are such a quick fix, like I want it and I want to feel better now.
Yeah.
Right. And frankly, modern medicine makes that easy. I mean, benzodiazepines will have a fast impact, but not necessarily the impact that you're looking for.
No.
So
not at all. That
ever
made me think of like, I literally just flashed. So I have like a real fear of heights. And I tried to go on a roller coaster and I did take a Xanax and I literally just fell asleep. Like I was just knocked out. So my experience of benzodiazepines is they just make you go to sleep. So.
Okay, so I need to say this for a second. So you wanted to go on a roller coaster. In order to do that, you had to knock yourself out to.
Well,
why were you even on the roller coaster?
Yeah. Well, I love to reface fears. I think that it's important to see. Just like I did with camping, I was like, I don't really think I like camping. I really remember not loving it as a child. We went a lot. And then I was like, well, let me just retest that because you never know, like what you're like, kind of like Brussels sprouts and asparagus. Like I hated those as a kid, but man, do I love those. And yes,
I love them now too.
I've now decided to trust that I dislike roller coasters, but I've also recognized that it's actually rooted in an old trauma that I just never.
Sure.
Yeah. And I was like, well,
addressed.
The things, do I care? And like, sometimes you've got to categorize, like, how important is it to address this one? Am I okay if I never set foot on a roller coaster? Quite frankly, yes.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
you're probably good.
Like, well, we're done.
Yeah, like solidified. It's not like Brussels sprouts. We are actually done with this.
They're delicious.
They are. I love them.
Right.
I used to hate them as a kid. I hated the way they smelled so bad. Like, now I love them.
I know. I should probably go back and try cabbage now because I used to really just like that as well. You're like, I don't know about that one.
Sauerkraut. I don't know.
That might be okay to keep avoiding. Yeah. So really, what we're talking about is instead of going with a quick fix, that we really need to recognize that real change takes time.
Yes. Well, and I look at anxiety and depression like this, like it is your body saying something's wrong.
Yeah.
There's something going on in the body. I mean, the body has alert and warning systems in place to tell us, like if you smell something bad, like if I have a cup of milk here and it's been sitting out for 3 days, I'm going to smell it first and be like, and I'm going to put that down, right?
Disgusting.
Right. Disgusting. I'm not going to work through that and go chug a lug. I don't care what that smells like, It's your body has a natural warning system for a lot of things and to tell us this is not good, right? And I think depression and anxiety are very similar. It's your body basically on hyper overload. You've avoided it for a long time and now it's right here in your face. And so really I look at life like you have to either learn to accept something fully and completely about your life, change something, or leave something behind,
Yeah.
you know? So that, and that's important because some people will be like, well, I do accept it. I accept this thing with my husband or whatever. I accept it. I'm like, well, if you accept it, then, you know, why do you still have panic attacks when he walks through the door?
Right.
Or why do you still complain about him? That's not acceptance,
No,
you know?
acceptance is
That is,
like, I've really embraced it. This is neither good
yeah,
nor bad. This just is.
right. Right. And acceptance doesn't mean agreement with. I
No.
mean, you don't have to be in agreement, but it's really a way to end your personal suffering. So when you accept something and there's pain, you know, you have what's called ordinary pain.
Yeah.
When you don't accept something and there's pain, then you have suffering,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know. Even though ordinary pain and suffering both seem kind of crappy, I'd rather have ordinary pain, you know? So we really just need to accept it, change it, or leave it behind. And, you know, it's funny because in my life, I've struggled with depression a little bit and anxiety. The only time I've struggled with anxiety was when I was in a really bad work situation right before I went into full-time private practice.
Mm.
And I thought, I can do this, you know, and people were telling me, just do it, you know, and I'm like, my body was saying, this does not feel right. I was
Right.
having panic attacks pretty much on the daily, coming home, crying my eyeballs out in my car, you know, then pulling up in your driveway and be like, okay, it's mom time, you know, like put it all
Right.
behind. I got to go be mom, you know, or whatever. It, and I found myself in a clinic and asking for a prescription for anxiety. I'm like, I've never had this anxiety before. What do I do?
Right.
Here's my prescription, whatever. It was literally, and I took it 2 times and I felt worse. And by the second day, I said to my husband, I go, all right, either I can medicate myself through this and forge ahead, or I can quit my job and be okay.
Right.
And I quit my job.
Yes.
And I know, yeah, and I know not everybody can do that, but what I'm
Right.
saying is, you know, sometimes you got to take a big chance. Sometimes you got to figure out what's causing it and solve for that
Yes.
instead of you trying to swim in with it and be okay with whatever's happening,
Yeah.
you know? So I quit my job and literally I'll never forget the day that I gave my notice. I did not have panic anymore, even though I still had to be there for a couple of weeks. I was like, you know, this is
Right.
fine. I know it's done, you know.
Right.
So many times I see people trying to, you know, manage their anxiety or depression within the life that's not fitting for them.
Right. So you're really saying let's listen. Let's actually heed what's going on. That anxiety and depression are signals that something
Yep.
isn't right, that something's not working for you, that something needs to change. And if we were to talk about like managing stressors or doing a better job of managing our time, is there any recommendation that you would give folks?
How to manage your time? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
like how to like really kind of like manage your
Are you there?
stressors so
Oh,
that you
you
feel
were
better.
totally froze.
My turn to freeze?
You were totally froze. I'm like, hello, hello.
Me. You're like, I don't know. She's not there anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, I think time management is different for everybody, you know, but I do think that routines are good, especially when you're struggling. People who tend to struggle more are those that don't have healthy habits in place and routines in place, you know. They're the ones that don't have the same type of bedtime routines or wake up routines. So I would say if you were going to do time management, start with bedtime, start with waking up. All right. So get those things in line because typically I don't know who your audience is, but I know that I was a busy mom. I mean, I still am. My kids are a little bit older now.
Yeah.
So, but you know, we put ourselves last and we're making sure everybody else has good routines and everybody else has their stuff. And we're like this, you know, like you're right, you're right. I gotta brush my teeth. Go ahead. You know, like
Right. Did I
whatever.
even
So
brush my teeth today?
did I exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So really,
Exactly.
it's so really you've shared so many gems. Like one of the things is like really what are your routines?
Hmm.
Stop really looking at stop trying to like mask the symptom, start to listen to the symptom. So if you are experiencing anxiety or depression, that there might be a change or you talked about acceptance, letting go, or changing, really like 3 key approaches to it.
Yes.
You suggested like when we're not really feeling good physically, emotionally, that we should really start to add protein in, and that's a really simple solution. And I'm so grateful that we got to spend some time together today, really talking about all these fantastic suggestions. And if they're interested in learning more about you, or if they're catching the replay of this, where should they go to learn more?
Sure. So I have a couple of places you can go, but I have a podcast and it's called Kick Off Your Damn Heels.
Love it.
And that that falls in line with the book I have coming out in January called Kick Off Your Damn Heels, How to Kick Anxiety and Live a Badass Life. So there's that. So all of that you can find at, you guessed it, kickoffyourdamnheels.com.
That is so perfect. I love it. Yes.
Right.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that our audience has really enjoyed this. I'll be resharing this in a few spots. And as a reminder, I go live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific for Wellness Wednesdays. And it was such a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you. I appreciate it too. I'd love to do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I just think that you've got so much knowledge to share that's really practical and like honestly quite like we can implement on this. You know, like,
yes, I try to keep it simple enough that people can do it.
Yeah, which I think is like a lot of times people overcomplicate things. So I really think that that's like the best strategy. Like if you keep it simple, people are more likely to execute on it because it's manageable. It's easier. I hope everyone has a really great rest of their day. Thank you all so much for joining us. Bye, y'all.
Bye.